Welcome to CH-AI Brews, your go-to podcast for all things AI at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. I'm your host, Daniel Duggin, with a bachelor's in computer science pursuing a master's in computer science. In each episode, we'll talk about the ways AI is revolutionizing education. We'll explore how AI is transforming teaching, learning, and our community. Whether you're a student, an educator, or simply curious about the future of learning, this podcast is for you.
So, my name is Grant Knowles. I am the Director of Innovation and Fine Arts for Hamilton County Schools. That comes after a career in the classroom. So that was several years as a first grade teacher and fifth grade teacher. Spent most of my years in middle school, both in the state of Tennessee and Georgia, and then also overseas in Zimbabwe as well. And in all of that kind of teaching experience, saw that we were creating a lot of opportunities for students, but that those opportunities weren't always evenly spread out. And so what we looked to do was me jumping to that district role for the Office of Innovation and Fine Arts. The purpose there is trying to make sure that all students get to have those engaging, relevant experiences where they're creating relationships with each other and the community and the folks around them.
With taking on Hamilton County Schools' AI oversight policy, you're definitely stepping into a leadership role. How does your experience shape this work?
Sure. So the work as the Director of Innovation, that part of the role is largely design thinking in action. And by design thinking, I define that as designing with, not for. And so the AI policy has been shaped by a lot of folks across the school district. So we have people in teaching and learning, we have folks in our IT department, all of that. And so it really kind of it was us coming together to identify, we wanted to make sure that first we were identifying opportunities or challenges that we wanted to address. What were things we wanted to do better? And then to kind of take an approach into AI from that opportunity angle rather than hey, here's 4 or 5 platforms we really want to use and just roll those out. So we took the first steps for us were really meeting with a lot of different people across the district, talking with teachers in the classroom, some students as well, and trying to ideate or identify where were those opportunities, and then from that backwards design a platform or an approach that we wanted to take with AI.
Before I ask this next question, I wanted to ask, what is it like in the classroom throughout K through 12, and what was the initial reaction of teachers with AI and the initial reaction of students with AI, and how has that evolved over the last 1.5 to 2 years?
Yeah, I think so. Also sharing that I'm a parent as well of a middle school student and an elementary school student. And I would say their approach to AI has been pretty typical across our students. Like our students have been ready to cannonball into AI. As kind of digital natives, it was just something they felt kind of inherently comfortable with. Where there's been a little bit more uncertainty, some discomfort has been with some of the teachers, and really we have a lot of folks who have jumped right into it. But also understanding we want to make sure that we're really practicing digital citizenship as we're empowering students and teachers to dive into this. So the initial steps have been a little bit mixed, but we take that approach with most of the innovation work that we do. It really kind of exists on a bell curve. And so it's just identifying those folks who are, one, already trying this out before we even come to them. We have a lot of folks who had already jumped in. We're using this in the personal life, sometimes in the professional life. But then kind of working towards that middle of the bell curve. How can we, when something works, how do we scale that out and share it with other people?
Awesome. Earlier this year, the Tennessee legislature passed a law requiring K through 12 school systems to have a policy in place pertaining to AI. With working with Hamilton County Schools, what are the top priorities in this policy, and if you're able to share the status of this policy?
Sure. So we have a fully board-approved policy, and that does go through, it's the recommendation process from us as the district, and then it's the school board, the Hamilton County School Board, who's elected. They are the folks who then vote on that and pass that. So we do have a fully active, approved AI policy. It's pretty standard. It's pretty boilerplate. Covers the basics. What we did to get to that was first kind of develop our design principles. And the very first thing when we jump into any form of design or innovation is coming up with those design principles, which they function like a filter. In a world where we could do absolutely anything, how do we decide what we're going to do? And for us, those design principles, there's 4 clear principles for us. The first one is we want to make sure that our use of AI is equitable. We want to be able to identify, not just the students who are ahead getting further ahead. This isn't the kids who finished their work early are now going to engage in AI, but really looking intentionally and by design to be able to help close gaps, personalize education, mentoring, things like that. So that first principle is that equitability piece. The second piece for us is around, I want to be really clear, we are not looking to replace teachers with AI. What we want to do is try to make sure that the teachers get to steer more into their strengths as teachers and less on kind of the administrative piece. So really leveraging the role of teachers there. That's our second principle. Our third principle is really around the role of the students as learners. We want to use AI as a tool to increase creativity and originality, not to replace that. So really working mindfully on using that as a tool to really help students grow their use, but not replace, day-to-day work. And then finally, and kind of most concretely, is to protect students and staff data. So to be really clear, we are steering into a lot of things that are already in place, like the FERPA rights and things like that. We just want to make sure no identifying information for students, teachers, anything like that gets put out into the broader internet and world.
Right. So to kind of bounce off of that, what were some of the challenges you faced in ensuring the AI oversight policy promotes innovation while protecting student privacy and data security, like you had just mentioned? Because I'm sure with being in K through 12, there are just tons of kids running around throwing whatever into any AI tool. So I'm curious how y'all have managed that.
I mean, if we're honest, and I don't think my mom's going to be listening to this, but hi, Mom, if you are, it's my mom and some folks in that journey that I really have the most concern about putting their personal information out there. There tends to be a little bit more of a healthier skepticism about some of that personal information. I think for us, one of the biggest challenges is just how quickly this is iterating and growing. It feels like as soon as we kind of have any kind of understanding on an individual platform or platforms more broadly, it's growing and changing so quickly. And so when we're thinking about things like policy that take a decent amount of time to set in place and become concrete, they're less agile. And so it's trying to balance that. The goal for us was to create a policy that could stand some test of time, and then we could still be agile with our use of it there. And then really kind of starting with small scale, we're basically taking an approach. We're trying to do 5 or 6 things really well with AI this year, and then be able to scale that out.
Right. And are you able to take us into the classroom and what day-to-day life may be like now with AI, or is it really not changed all that much?
I think it's going to look a little bit different classroom to classroom. We have some really interesting things going on in our middle school. We have a whole department that's dedicated to gap closure. And so they really support a lot of the students who need a little bit of additional instruction. They've steered into an AI-driven tutoring tool that helps kind of provide personalized leveling for students. Then, do you need another video to help with this? Do you need some more practice problems? Do we reword this? And so if you were to step in there, you would see the teacher really acting as a facilitator, and that platform allows the teacher to kind of get quick feedback and be able to connect with students on a faster, more personalized level. Same thing, we've got something similar that we're running with our literacy program at a handful of middle schools. We're testing that out. That's really helping students as they engage with text and things like that. What we're trying to do is get more information to teachers faster so that they can respond in a more personalized way. The other area that I'm really excited about is with kind of AI-led translation, as we're working to really increase a sense of belonging and community for families. Rather than trying to type something out on a Google Translate, how do we leverage AI-driven rapid translation of whether that's just voice-to-voice or with videos and things like that. So I think when you step into some of our front offices, you would see something a little bit different than you did a few years ago. In some of our classrooms, you're just going to see that more personalized information getting to teachers faster so they can more rapidly respond to student needs.
Earlier, you had talked about you wanted to make it very clear that the goal is not to replace teachers. So for those that are planning or thinking of entering the teaching profession, what piece of advice or thoughts would you share with them on or how AI-related skills may be sought after in the future being a teacher?
Sure. So I'm going to channel a colleague of mine, Michael Stone, in the area who works for Public Education Foundation. I've heard him say many times, your job is not going to be replaced by AI. We're not there yet, and that's not the target. However, the person that can use AI, can leverage AI really well to be 4 or 5 times more effective, like that's a person that's going to be most competitive. What I think is the most important piece here is to be mindful as teachers that we need to be lifelong learners as well. And so what I think is a really powerful approach to this is a teacher showing the students that they're working with that they're always learning, they're always working through new things as well. I've had some really interesting conversations with our University High students here on campus about, how do we leverage AI to help us just become more effective, to allow us to use our strengths, and kind of reduce some of the administrative and more kind of time-consuming tasks, just to increase our efficiency, to kind of help with idea fluency and things like that.
Is there any training going on for all of the faculty and staff in all the Hamilton County schools, whether it's going to AI workshops or just general discussions? Is that a thing that's going on right now?
Yes. So we have a couple of different things that are going on. So especially our instructional technology department is regularly providing everything we're doing right now with AI is really opt-in, unless there are some of those specific like middle school pilots that I mentioned. Most everything right now is just on that front end of the bell curve. Who's wanting to already kind of, whether you want to cannonball into the AI pool or just dip your toe in, there's opportunities, whether that's kind of live in-person trainings. We also have video recorded asynchronous trainings that people can kind of jump into as well. But really want to try to make sure that we are developing some capacity in a handful of folks. We have a small amount of people who support everyone in the district. So if we can increase the capacity of others to help that scale out, that's really the process that we're in right now.
And what has some of the parental feedback been on the policies that you've rolled out and the initial reactions from that policy when AI rolled out in the first place?
It's a great question, and it's all over the board. We have everything from parents who are wanting to make sure that their child is on kind of the very cutting edge of understanding this is a new emerging technology. We have folks who are very hesitant for their children to be ever really kind of in that guinea pig position where we're trying something out with a risk of failure. So I think what we're looking to do is to be listeners and learners right now. As I mentioned, everything feels like it's iterating really quickly. What we are doing in some deeper capacities as we're looking to steer into some more generative AI or just some authentic or organic use is to really connect with the families of those students, make sure that we're proactive up front about those safeguards, about having guardrails in place as we engage with UTC for Hamilton County Schools use, just trying to make sure that the use feels safe and that there are some redundancies in that safety, and then taking a really mindful approach of documenting and sharing as these things are happening, just to kind of dispel some myths. I think my generation's first interaction with AI really comes from the Terminator movies, right, where AI has taken over the world, and I think there's that's kind of what sits front for a lot of folks. So I do hear that a lot, and it's really just collecting stories from students and teachers as things are happening and sharing out what we're learning and how that's growing.
Going forward, are there any technologies that you hope to work with being a part of Hamilton County Schools, with not just generative AI, with tools like ChatGPT and stuff like that, or is there any hope or goal to work with anything maybe in robotics by any chance?
So what I hope you would see anytime you drop into a Hamilton County Schools classroom is engagement in computer science and robotics across the school, use of our digital fabrication network. We have the largest digital fabrication network anywhere in the world right now here in Hamilton County. We have one of the very largest STEM networks anywhere, and those are things that we really steer into to try to make sure that each and every student gets to take a buffet style approach. Let's try a little bit of everything, and then think about what are those things you really want to go back and try more of.
I guess kind of what I want to ask again about robotics is, do you see that being able to play a factor in encouraging students to reach out to any other field outside of STEM and maybe help them generate ideas or use tools that they may not have known how to use before, whether it's using AI or using AI tools that, such as robotics?
Some of my very favorite light bulb moments that, when you see that light come on for a student and they kind of build that self-efficacy of, I couldn't do this before, but I can do it now, and that becomes contagious and they take that on to others. Some of my favorite light bulb moments have come from students using robots, right? Where it's you're working to create, idea doubt versus self-doubt. So it's not an I can't do this. It's the way that I coded it this first time didn't work. I try it out. It's not a personal thing. It didn't work. I'm going to try it again and again. It's that what I love about robotics is it provides that iterative problem solving, which I want to see students use no matter what field you go into. You just take that approach of, it's not that I can't do it, it's that I haven't done it yet. and that I can continue to apply myself to grow that. So to answer the question, yes, like I would love to see, I especially appreciate the robotics because it gives that hands-on experience as opposed to just, like a scratch programming where you're doing the visual coding, but you're moving a sprite or a thing across the screen, whereas the robots provide that tangible engagement that I really want to make sure students have.
One thing I definitely wanted to ask is kids are very curious, and I'm sure with the access that kids have to ChatGPT and other tools like that, a lot of people's concerns with AI, and I'm sure parental concern, is bias within what information it spits out, whether it's medical related, history related, political related, or whatever else. Is that something that you all are, I'm sure you guys are all aware of it, but is there any sort of training that you guys are doing to kind of help students fact check what it's spitting out towards them?
Sure. So we don't have really much of any. In fact, at this moment, there are no students who are actively engaging with ChatGPT or other generative AI for the most part outside of, inside the school district. While I have my middle school son who regularly uses ChatGPT, sometimes for school, mostly for his own entertainment. And that's something that we're able to monitor. What we want to do is make sure that we are intentionally supporting, just as you're saying. So checking for bias, checking for accuracy. I think there can be a kind of bias towards authority. If the generative AI model spits back an answer, oftentimes it's seen as this is the authoritative answer, when we're really just skimming a very small amount of the internet, and accuracy can be all over the place. Bias for sure. So what I'm most excited about is that organic, authentic use that can really help. We want to help break some ceilings for students. And we feel that one of the ways to do that is to equip them with deep use of language models and things like that. If a student's able to use ChatGPT in a classroom to help them with literacy, and those skills are transferable across the board, and it helps them, if that helps boost their financial future, we want to be all about that. We're not there yet. We're planning very intentionally. So the majority of the use of AI is teacher-centered in the form of its platforms that have been created for education for a teacher to roll out to students. What I believe you'll start seeing as soon as next semester is that classroom to classroom, there will be some spaces where we do have students engaging. What we're building out as we go is like, what does an advanced or what does a comprehensive digital citizenship look like, so that we're having those conversations, deeper conversations about bias and accuracy, and really what's the role of AI as a tool to build skills, not a way to just necessarily get you from a question to an answer.
Right. So my last question would be, what peace of mind can you offer parents or kids that are heading from high school to college, or kids that are just starting to really use the internet and technology? What piece of advice can you offer them that Hamilton County Schools is keeping them their first priority?
Yeah, so that's it is directly built into our board policy. That is the kind of thing that we already have rolled out communication. So as I mentioned, the bell curve early on, and there are teachers who, as soon as AI was emerging, they were using it, but the communication that we've shared from the very first is we want to make sure that we're safeguarding our students. And that's first and foremost for us. I always said to my students in the classroom, my number one job is to keep you safe. 1A is to make sure that you're learning, but safety comes first. And so really making sure that that's front of mind, not just from words, but really making sure. And that's why we're slowly, we haven't jumped into the generative AI with students yet, because we're still in the process with UTC of testing models to make sure that there's not just one layer of safety and training, but that is comprehensive training and safety with redundancy, so that if for whatever reason, even after we have the conversation, the student puts in, identifying information, that would be flagged. And we're also not training, we're not training broader models. We're not sending out what students are doing to be shared just with anyone. Safety is first and foremost for us, both from the board policy and then our practices, training, communication, things like that.
This has been Grant Knowles. And I'm Daniel Duggin. Thanks for tuning in. The music in this podcast is by Blue Dot Sessions. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can find this and all episodes of CH-AI Brews at wutc.org/podlab or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep learning and exploring the possibilities of AI.